Welcome to Canada Reads Inspired, featuring two friends who hope to inspire you to read across Canada. Rebecca is an hour from the border in Michigan, and Tara is from Ontario.
If you look at those photographs of those girls screaming at Beatles concert, it's like this eruption of female desire, which used to be so, tamped down. And so Seren comes of age in a period when not all bets are off, but things are changing.
Hello and welcome to Canada Reads Inspired. I'm Tara and I'm here today with a special guest, author JoAnn McCaig. Welcome, JoAnn.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Okay, so JoAnn, let me give you a little bio, listeners. JoAnn McCaig is a late bloomer who published her first novel, The Textbook of the Rose, when she was 47. It was shortlisted for the Alberta Book Award and won the W.O. Mitchell Prize. Her second novel, An Honest Woman, took 19 years. That's amazing. 19 years to come to fruition and was generously blurbed by Aretha Van Erck and Sharon Butala. JoAnn has recently published essays in Barren, an exploration of the journey to motherhood, Don't Tell, Family Secrets, and You Look Good for Your Age. For many years, she taught English at the University of Calgary. She now owns Shelf Life Books, an independent bookstore in Calgary. She's the mother of 3 fine sons and the grandmother of 2 grand girls. Her latest novel, Beneficiary, is probably her last novel, but who knows? Okay, JoAnn, let's just jump in. Tell us about Beneficiary.
Well, that's part of the question in my bio, who knows? The first 2 sections of Beneficiary were drafted in the 1990s. And in one sense, I'm happy about that because they describe what it's like to be a single mom of a bunch of little kids. And getting that down on paper when I was actually in that pickle myself was really good, because it's funny when I look back now, it's like, oh, it was so wonderful, it was so great, and it wasn't. It was a nightmare. So I'm grateful that that the early drafts of those first 2 sections of Beneficiary were written while I was hip deep in it, but I couldn't really find a home for either of these first 2 sections. They were they were almost novellas. They were too long to be short stories. So I ended up setting them aside for quite a long time. And then COVID happened, and everything slowed down. And I went out. My family has a place in the mountains of the East Kootenay Valley, just over the border in BC. And so I spent a lot of the pandemic there, and I don't know. I sort of returned to these 2 sections and thought, well, what else? And hence the next 3 sections of the novel, Catastrophe, Beneficiary, and Distancing, came into being. And then once I had those, I realized I had what could loosely be called a novel, I suppose.
So did you go into writing those last 3 parts, having the first 2 parts in your mind, like being a continuation?
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
did you? Okay,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. That it was Seren's story. My central character's name is Seren, and it was just, okay, that's where she was then. Well, what happened next?
Yeah. I have a question for you about Seren, because Seren, when we meet her, is in roughly like in her 60s, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we go back in time and see her from childhood, adolescence, all the way up through her life. And she lives a life of privilege. And we'll get to this later. Like, she struggles with that privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Because often with the word privilege, there comes like negative connotations lately.
Mm-hmm.
But she is a very likable character. Like, I found we have very different backgrounds, myself and Seren, but I saw myself in her. How do you make a character of privilege into like a one that everyone can or most people can uh, relate to. Was that in your mind as you were writing her?
No, not really. I have three novels altogether: Textbook of the Rose and Honest Woman, and this one. And in each, my central character isn't a heroine, like she
Hmm.
isn't this. I'm never concerned with making my central characters relatable, because in my own reading, the kinds of characters I find interesting are the ones who are really complicated,
Yeah.
who've got all this different stuff going on and all these different ways of handling things. So I never aim to make a character relatable or even likable.
Hmm.
My impetus is to make the character interesting and to invite the reader to look at this character and go, well, that's kind of an odd reaction, but
Yeah.
I can sort of understand it. So I guess that's sort of a convoluted answer to. So no, I didn't have that. I didn't have privilege in the forefront, though, as you know, that is a part of Seren's life, but it wasn't in my mind that, oh, this might not make her sympathetic or whatever,
Yeah.
because I'm not that fussed about how sympathetic she is.
Yeah. No, I I did question some things she did, but I didn't care because I was just like full on into her because she accepted her flaws. She knew she was a flawed character, and flawed characters are the most interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I certainly think so. Like if you think about the novels of Charles Dickens, right? And
Hmm.
these wonderful, full-bodied, complex characters, except for the women. They're either implacably evil, or they're impossibly saintly, and they're just kind of flat. And I mean, I'm trying to remember their names, and I can
Hmm.
remember the names of these fully rounded, complicated male characters. So yeah, I think it's really important to give a fictional character a full life, some
Yep.
fullness, not just to make them one thing, this thing or that thing.
Well, you've achieved it because that's what we get with Seren in Beneficiary.
Well, great.
So,
Good to
yeah.
hear. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the cover. Our listeners
Yeah.
can't see it, but it's got a little pink, and you have this young girl with a parasol, and she's in like a long, glittery gown on some kind of like bicycle, like wheeled thing. And you do mention this picture in the book as well. Um, can you talk about the picture of this young girl and the significance of it to Saren's journey?
Sure, sure. So yeah, the photograph on the front is of something called a fancy turnout, and that's where a girl in a beautiful gown is sort of buttoned into it's actually not a bicycle, it's a carriage,
Oh,
with that's pulled by a pony, and the driver is a young boy who's all dressed up in a tuxedo and a top hat. So two things about that. The first is that there's a scene early on in the book when Seren is 19 years old, and she is having a burger in a bar with a guy friend, and she sees this picture on the wall, and she's had a rough night the night before, and she looks at this picture on the wall of this girl sort of trapped in this voluminous pink skirt at the mercy of the boy who is driving. And in the description of the photograph of the fancy turnout, there are the words that say the boy is always the driver. And that's a moment in Saren's life where she goes, I don't like this setup. This is not going to work for me. And it's a big turning point for her. It's one of several in the book where she goes, I don't like this setup. I don't think this is going to work for me. And the careful reader of Beneficiary would be rewarded by looking for a recurrence of the image of the pink skirt throughout the book, right? Because it's something that reappears, as does a string of pearls, throughout the book, and sort of goes into an evolution until the final pink skirt you see is on Seren's daughter, Emma, who's off to a punk show, and she's wearing a pink tutu rather ironically. So yeah. So the other thing is about the cover. So this is a really awkward thing. So I have this scene in the novel where Seren sees this photograph, and it's very life-changing for her. And I had a photograph in my own archive of a proper fancy turnout with a little girl wearing a tiara and the boy sitting next to her and the beautiful pony pulling the carriage and all these things. And the reason I have that photo is because it was my grandmother's. So, full confession, my grandmother bred Shetland ponies. And this is a photograph of a prize-winning fancy turnout that she had with this beautiful pony named Flash, who's posing for the camera, and then these two kids on the carriage. So I presented this photo very excitedly to U of C Press and said, this is it. This is the photo we need. And they said, do you have permission from the two children sitting on the carriage for the, and I didn't even know who they were, these two kids. Like, you know, and at the bottom of the photo, it says, to Mrs. McCaig with love from Karen. So my grandmother had obviously gotten these two kids to be in the fancy turnout and so forth. But because I could not obtain permission from the persons in the photograph, the press said, I'm sorry, we can't use the photo. So I was dismayed. I was dismayed because it was really important to me to have that. So what I ended up doing is finding another photograph, and this photograph is of me. So my grandmother also put my brother and me in that same rig with the voluminous pink skirt, and my brother in the tails and the top hat, driving. And we were the stars of the Regina Fair Parade in 1961 or two. I would have been like 8 or 9 years old, I guess. And so we had to use, that was the only photograph. So, I mean, it is a novel, you guys. It's a novel. It's not a memoir, but it's a little,
So
yeah, that's
this
me.
is you.
That's me. So
That's
I mean,
amazing.
well, you know, short story long. So I guess you could say that I come by my desire to write about pink skirts very honestly.
Yeah.
Shall we put it that way?
That is amazing. Okay, thank you for like the insight into the book and to the picture itself, because
Yeah.
that's amazing. I know when I got to the scene where she sees the picture on the wall and it's describing it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, okay, now I get the book cover. Now that's amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you. Love that. Okay. I had mentioned to JoAnn offline that I knew I was going to love this book as soon as I opened up before I even started reading it, because the introductory quote is from Ghostbusters 2. And I love all the Ghostbusters movies. And it's Vigo the Carpathian, the bad guy in Ghostbusters 2. And not only that, the quote's very good too. Death is but a door, time is but a window. So I was like, yes, sign me up. I want to open this book right away. So Seren, during a medical crisis, experiences something that she refers to as the Vigo reaction.
Yes.
Can you discuss this term?
Sure. So for Seren, it's a misheard what her doctor actually said in this terrible moment in her life, which does involve a loss and a death, and ultimately the death of her marriage. She mishears how the doctor describes this physical event that she's experiencing, because she just recently been to see Ghostbusters 2 with her kids, and they had a reaction to Vigo. So Vigo's this incredibly slimy, evil guy who's going to take over the world, and the kids are delighted that Vigo is defeated, and they're happy and everything. But then they start having nightmares about Vigo. And so Seren begins to think of the Vigo reaction as the thing that happens, the kind of ripple effect that happens after the big scary moment. So the big scary moment has happened and you think, oh, we're done with that. But then it isn't. It just keeps rippling and rippling. And truth to tell, I wanted the whole novel to be titled "The Vigo Reaction," and it wasn't until I was working on it with Aretha, and it was really late in the game. Like the contract I signed with U of C Press was for a novel called "The Vigo Reaction," but I sort of I looked at the whole manuscript and I thought, really, it's more like Beneficiary is a more apt title, because certainly there's a Vigo reaction to any event in a person's life, right? But I felt like the energy of the novel was about Seren coming to terms with the notion that she's the beneficiary of every experience that's come her way, every joy, every sorrow, every bit of good luck, every bit of bad luck, every romance, every broken heart, all of it. She's a beneficiary of all of it. And like it's all a gift that she's been given to kind of help her move through her life and achieve some level of self-acceptance, of serenity, of peace.
Yeah. Okay, there's another point in the book where Seren mentions an insufficient desire to please, that she had it, that she had been inoculated against pleasing men with IDP, insufficient desire to please. So, which I loved. I was like, highlight that. Can you discuss that in terms of Seren and also the generational expectations of women?
Yeah. Yeah, well, for Seren, so she's born in the early 50s and raised by a mom who would have described herself as a housewife. And but Seren would have started high school in the late 60s. She would have experienced Beatlemania in the mid 60s, in which, like, if you look at those photographs of those girls screaming at Beatles concert, it's like this eruption of female desire, which used to be so, you tamped down. And so Seren comes of age in a period when not all bets are off, but things are changing. The pill is a thing. The idea that a girl must never call a boy is, or that a girl has to sit by the phone and wait for a boy to ask her out. So all those things are shifting. And as she goes through her life, Seren sort of starts to realize that, it isn't necessary for her to be pleasing to men. Like that's not her job. Like if she's able to work and support herself and raise her children and pay her mortgage, being pleasing to men, she can do that if she wants, but it's not required. It's not a requirement anymore. And really, if you look at, you're younger than me, but if you look at, young women in their 30s and 40s now, I think they've really benefited from the kinds of questions that women of Seren's generation started to ask and answered very incompletely. Like there's still a lot of, can I manage this on my own? But I certainly see a lot of insufficient desire to please in young women in their 30s and 40s now.
Yeah, I do too. I myself, so I'm in my mid 50s, and it is just, there's still a lot I'm dealing with that I grew up with. And as I'm getting into my 50s, I have also been inoculated with IDP, which is awesome. But
it's great, isn't it?
It is. It's fantastic. And it's like when you're out and I'm like, I don't have to be polite to you, old man, because you just said that to me. Like, not to get personal, but it is. It's really, it is very freeing. But you're right. I'm seeing it in like the next generation at a way younger age.
Yes.
And it's really hopeful to see it happening earlier.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning that Seren struggles with her privilege. So probably in her, can't remember, but it's later in life, in her maybe 40s, 50s, when one of her friends advises her to think of money as a kind of energy. How does this reframe of money and privilege affect Seren?
Mm. Yeah, that's when she's just received an inheritance larger than what she was expecting, and is feeling a little confused by all that. And and the friend has done charitable work overseas, which gives him a really different perspective than someone who's living in North America. And he just points out to her that putting a moral value on money it isn't a fact, it's a choice. And that with this windfall, she has all kinds of choices. She can do all sorts of interesting and helpful things in the world, and she doesn't have to be burdened by whatever society may think about privilege. That she can sort of turn that on its head and make it a positive
Mm-hmm.
instead of a negative. So following that conversation, yeah, that's in the alphabetized portion.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's N for neurotic, where Martin says that to her. And so a few letters on, we get to S, and Seren has come up with an idea for a charitable foundation called Sacred Little Buildings. And she starts buying up abandoned churches and turning them into community centers, art galleries, performance spaces, and whatever. So she's basically using the money she has as a kind of energy to make good things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now you've mentioned like the alphabetized. So it is, the book structurally changes. Like it's in that it's not a traditional structure from
Mm.
beginning to end. Do
Yeah.
you want to talk about the structure, how you chose to set it up?
Sure. Yeah, people will ask me about the structures in my books, and the best answer I have is that's just how it came out. I think I sort of have a short attention span or something, but I've never written an outline for a novel. I've never written a chapter. I've never said, well, okay, in this chapter this is going to happen. Like, my writing process is total chaos, absolute chaos. No idea what's going to happen next. So the first novel was a sort of loosely connected set of short stories, followed by a novella with a epilogue and a prologue, and we kind of called that a novel. The second one was a long erotic fantasy, sort of wrapped like an onion, with these sort of onion layers on the outside wrapped around it, where the narrator's kind of looking at the center and going, that's weird, that's interesting, what's going on there. So again, total chaos. And with this one, the form of it, yeah, the first two, like, the Vigo reaction is not chronological, it leaps back and
Mhm.
forth in time. Family Fugue is roughly chronological, it's a year in the life of a family. And then you get to Catastrophe, which is the moment where the inheritance comes. And I think that the abecedarium setup or structure for that was sort of my response to how chaotic and unmanageable that Catastrophe felt to Seren, and that explaining it as A is for announcement of the father's death, B is for brother-in-law, the complications there. That was a way of managing
Mhm.
the complexity of it, just a way of organizing all that chaos and kind of putting it in a little box. With Beneficiary, we have three different places that Seren travels to. She goes on a ski trip to Austria with her family. She volunteers on Lesbos during the refugee crisis, and she goes to a literary festival in Mexico, and all three of those sort of move her story along. And then the final one, Distancing, the structure of that is Seren kind of looking out the window during the pandemic and noticing what's going on in nature. And then something she sees in nature takes her back to, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this moment or that moment, and allows her to sort of revisit, rethink, re-experience, reconsider, and eventually sort of make peace with her past.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, I mentioned in your intro that you are now the owner of an independent bookstore, Shelf Life Books.
yes.
So let's chit chat about that because I love independent bookstores.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part of being a owner of a independent bookstore?
Oh, it's honestly it's brought blessings that I could never have imagined. I when my kids were little, I taught as a sessional at the University of Calgary. Um, and it was a good job,
Mhm.
for a mom, because the hours were manageable and I had summers off and all that stuff. But there came a time when teaching was done. I was around 2009, and I got to thinking, well, what's another way to be bookish? And Calgary had just lost our McNally Robinson bookstore downtown, so we had no downtown bookstore except for an Indigo, which is not a real bookstore. So, so, so and I knew zero about retail, like nothing, nothing. I knew a lot about books, nothing about retail, but I had an old friend, Will Lawrence, who was a retail genius. So the two of us got together and came up with this idea for Shelf Life Books, and found a really nice location, not right downtown, but close enough that we do get lunch hour traffic
Mhm.
from downtown. And it's been so much fun, Tara. It's just like it was just a whole other way of being bookish, and creating a space that it's a Shelf Life Books is a community hub.
Yeah.
It's a place where people meet and talk. We actually have a right after Trump's first election, one of our customers started a political book club to try to bridge the gap between the left and the right.
Mhm.
And it's still going strong almost 10 years later. It's called the
Wow.
How Can You Think That Book Club. And they choose a sort of leftish title one month and a rightish title the
Yeah.
next, and bring everybody together for a discussion, because it would be great if we could have civil discussions about our
Mhm.
interests and
Yeah,
our differences, don't you think?
I think
So,
so. Instead of just yelling at each other. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So no, it's been really good. I've stepped away from it recently, and I have wonderful staff that run the bookstore now. But yeah, it's been absolutely a delight. Our customers are amazing. They are so loyal. They're so committed. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's cheaper to order on Amazon, but
Yeah,
our customers understand that if they want us to stay here, they have to buy from us,
yeah,
and they have to encourage their friends to buy from us. So,
sure do.
um, yeah.
Amazing. I had a friend, well, it's on my list. If I ever make it to Calgary, I'll be coming to
Mhm,
your bookstore.
mhm,
But a friend who recently went to Calgary, she didn't have time to get to because I was like, "There's a really good bookstore there," but she
mhm,
was only there for a couple of days. But she was amazed at the your downtown area. She's like,
mhm.
"It's beautiful." She's like, "It's so walkable and all these amazing restaurants and coffee places." And she's like, "And no Tim Hortons." Like it's all like beautiful, independent. She's like,
Yes.
"It's amazing." And I'm like, "That
Yeah.
is so great to hear." Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I think it's really important. Like it's depressing to go come into a town and just see all franchises.
Mhm.
It's not very appealing.
Yeah, that's nice. So now with that in mind, This is how I also love to end a conversation, is
Mhm.
asking you for recommendations to grow our TBRs. So what you've been reading lately, some of your favorite books, whatever you would like to share with us.
Oh, great. Well, I
Yeah,
love talking about books.
me too. Me too.
Um, so that's what TBR stands for, is to be
Yes,
read.
to be read.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, okay. So just this week, I finished a novel by Sarah Moss, Moss, a Scottish
Mhm.
writer. She's wonderful, and she has a social conscience. You know, she has a
Okay.
sense of social justice. But her novels are really interesting stories about contemporary women's lives. And the two that I'd recommend are the most recent one, Ripeness. The Ripeness is All, uh, which I just finished this week. But an earlier one of hers that I loved as well, which was set in a campground, it was called Summer Water. And
Oh,
it was really good too. And I understand actually she's a writer who wrestles with the notion of privilege, and I know she has recently written a memoir about that, and it has the word wolf in the title, but I haven't
okay.
got my hands on it yet.
We'll
Um,
find it.
a writer I discovered quite by accident, like the bookstore staff, they're so smart. These young people who work at the bookstore, and if something comes in, they can look at it and go, "I think JoAnn would like this." So, "Scary Monsters" by Michelle DeKretzer ended up on my book pile at the bookstore. And her name is DE, and then the surname is Kretser. And she's Sri Lankan born, but
Mm,
lives in Australia. And her work is so interesting. She's one of the most exciting new writers I've found in quite a while. The one I read most recently was Theory and Practice,
okay.
which is set in grad school in the 1990s. And I was in grad school in the 1990s. And boy, does she ever nail it. She's amazing. Yeah, she's really good. And just one more recommendation, if I could. There's
Mhm.
um, there's a writing power couple out at UVic, Essie Adujan and her husband, Stephen Price.
Yep.
And I've been hearing, my daughter-in-law actually took classes with Stephen Price at UVic in her creative writing studies, and spoke very highly of him. And I've heard him praised all over the place, but I hadn't read his work till recently. And then I just picked up Lampedusa by him. So
Yeah.
here it is,
Yep.
Lampedusa. And Lampedusa is a little island in the Mediterranean, which is in the news lately because refugee boats land there, refugee boats coming from North Africa. It's sort of the landing place. But honestly, Tara, like, why did I love this novel? I don't know. It's set in 1955. It's the true story of a nobleman, an Italian nobleman who's exiled and has been through the Second World War and suffered terribly. And he's old and he's sick, and he decides to write a novel. And Price's novel just follows this character through, I think, the last 2 years of his life as he tries to write this novel. And I don't I don't know why I loved it so much, but
Mhm.
I don't do marginalia, but I do dog ears. You know, I
Yep.
fold pages over, and the dog ears on my copy of Lampedusa are many, many, many. So it's it's magic. I
Yeah.
don't know how he makes it so fascinating, but Lampedusa was just absolutely beautiful. It was just a wonderful novel.
That's I always I was mentioning to a friend, we were talking earlier this week, that sometimes the books that you love, because she had finished a book and sent it to me, and she's like, "Oh my God, you must read it!" Like, all the
Mhm.
capital letters, all the she's like, and I can't tell you why. She's like, I just love it. And I'm like, sometimes the books that we really love, you can't explain it. It's just like this visceral feeling that you're like, this is the book.
Yeah,
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 that's
yeah.
so
It's
cool.
magic.
It is. It's magic. Well, thank you so much, JoAnn. I really, really enjoyed this.
It was a lot of fun to talk to you today. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you showing up. So that's Beneficiary is JoAnn's latest book. It's available. In your independent bookstore and online, we'll find the link and we'll put that in the show notes for online orders. But, go to your independent bookstore and pick it up. And they will I know mine will order it for you. If they don't have it on the shelf, independent bookstores are also great for ordering the books in for you.
Absolutely.
So, yep. Okay. Thank you all for listening, and may all your reading be inspired. Thank you for listening to Canada Reads Inspired. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads Inspired and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. May all your reading be inspired.